it's our industry has been decimated, really, to put it bluntly. We were the first industry to close down and probably one of the hardest hit. In Waterloo Region, we have approximately 2,400, almost 2,500 tourism businesses that employ about 24,000 people when we're all working. But about 60% of our tourism businesses are completely shut down right now. Well, as you know, many of our restaurants are offering takeout and delivery to try and keep the lights on and generate a little bit of revenue, but most of the others don't have that option. So they're trying to access any funding that's available, but that has been difficult. Some of the, to give you an idea of just a couple of the programs that the federal government has come out with, there is the 75% wage subsidy, which is helpful if businesses are open. But if they're not open and they don't have anyone to pay, that doesn't help. And it only goes until June the 6th. And at this point, we don't know if restaurants or attractions will be able to open by then. So if they extend that program, hopefully they'll be able to extend it as long as the end of the year, because we think that it's going to take that long to have the recovery really even start. That would be really helpful. The Business Credit Availability Program, they all have acronyms. That's the BCAP. I always have to look them up because I can never remember what they stand for. But that one is challenged because our tourism industry has very small margins and many are in debt already. So commercial banks are not prone to lending money to organizations that don't see a real prospect of being able to pay that back anytime soon. So many of them are being denied that. There's the the commercial emergency commercial rent assistance, or CECERA. Many landlords are not taking advantage of that because it's not a big enough incentive to get them to do it. So that means a lot of tenants are not getting a break from that. Well, there's a couple of things. One is actually provincial government's prerogative, and that is, at this point in time, if you lay someone off temporarily, they can be off for 13 weeks before you have to let them go on a permanent basis, in which case you have to pay them out a dismissal pay. If they could extend that temporary layoff, that would be really helpful, because taking the financial hit of having to pay someone out for a permanent dismissal is challenging. And most businesses do want to bring back their staff. They just won't be able to do that within the 13-week period. So that's a big one, and we haven't seen any movement on that yet. One of the other things that would be helpful is putting the rent assistance into the hands of tenants rather than in the hands of landlords. The big challenge for most of our tourism businesses, and in fact many small businesses, is that their fixed expenses sometimes make up to 65% of what their total expenses are. So liquidity is a huge issue. And if they don't have that and they have to stay with no revenue, they have to stay closed for another month, that just means that they're even closer to the brink of having to close permanently. And the other thing that would help would be government guaranteed loans, and the government stepping in to talk to commercial banks about backing loans for tourism businesses. Well, I think, we're doing our best to try and support those asks from the provincial and federal government. And talking to someone like you is really, really helpful, because I think that when our local MPs and MPPs and municipally elected officials hear this on the news, it makes more sense to them. They're being inundated with letters of request or demand from their constituents and other businesses at this point. So I understand that they are otherwise engaged, and many of them are working around the clock to try and help. But if small businesses are looking for help, there's a couple of places. They should look to their Chamber of Commerce or Board of Trade, depending on where they're based. And they can look to the Waterloo Region Small Business Center as well, because they have a number of areas where there are webinars available and sometimes a helpline that they can call and get some advice on where to go for human resources advice or some insurance advice. That's a good question. One of the things that we have on our website at explorewaterlooregion.com is Waterloo Region United, or WR United page, and it lists by municipality what businesses are open. Mostly are restaurants that are offering takeout and delivery. So if we can encourage people to support their favorite eatery, that if it's open right now, that would be a tremendous help. And then when restrictions are lifted, we need people to get out and frequent those restaurants and attractions to try and help them keep on their feet. Because essentially what we think is going to happen is when restrictions are lifted, people are going to be traveling mostly regionally. You know, they're not going to be going on a long road trip or traveling to Europe anytime soon. So we need to get people out in our own community.